Faith is probably the biggest motivator of all, and perhaps that's why so many religions have been able to coexist for so long. But sometimes people put their faith in the weirdest things, and sometimes they even build shrines to appease their faith. Let's take a look at some of the weirdest ones. Number 13. Skull Cathedral, Portugal. One of the most famous monuments in Portugal is the Capela dos Ossos, or the Chapel of Bones. It is a small interior chapel located next to the entrance of the Church of St. Francis. The chapel gets its name because the interior walls are made up of bones. It was built in the 16th century by a monk who wanted his brothers to remember about their own mortality. And what better way to do it than displaying bones, right? And perhaps it is best displayed at the entrance where it says, "We bones that here are, for yours await." Pretty grim, right? The entire chapel is very ominous, with the lights entering through small openings on the left, and the ceiling is painted with death motifs. All in all, a pretty weird thing to have in a church. Number 12. Phra Nang Cave, Thailand. A swim at the Phra Nang beach in Thailand is definitely refreshing, but it may also give you more of a view than you asked for, because hidden on the east side of the beach is a cave full of stalagmites, although that's not all it's full of. You will find many penis sculptures there. The story goes that the cave is home to the mystical sea princess Phra Nang, and the penises are left there as an offering to her, so that it makes the journey of the fishermen safe across the water. So why male genitalia? Because apparently it represents the Hindu god Shiva, and it appeases her. The cave is full of penises with colorful cloth and incense, and if you do visit, be respectful, because the locals genuinely believe in the mythological tale. Number 11. Tomb of Samarkand, Uzbekistan. Although the mausoleum looks pretty normal from the outside, the actual oddity here is the structure that's supposed to hold the remains of the saint. It is 5 feet wide, 5 feet high, and over 59 feet long. By those standards, Saint Daniel was a giant, but that's not the real reason for the tomb being so large. It is said that the saint is still growing, and that is the reason for the extra large tomb. There are many bizarre stories surrounding it, but the weirdest one is that the tomb only contains his hand, which is kept on growing. Number 10. Sedlec Ossuary, Czech Republic. When you step into a church, the last thing you would expect is to be freaked out. And yet, in a small Roman Catholic chapel in the Czech Republic, you definitely get the creeps when you enter inside, because there are over 40,000 skeletons. Not only will you find a splendid bone chandelier, which probably has all the bones that a human body may have, but there are also bone chalices, skull candle holders, and other weird stuff. It all began in the 13th century when a priest brought back soil, which was supposed to be from the grave of the Holy Lord, and sprinkled it in the church. Thus, it became a very sought-after burial ground. Soon, there were more bones than could be handled, and thus began the process of storing them in a crypt and using the bones for decoration. Number 9. Incorrupt Saints, Italy. In many churches across Italy, you might come across a few people who look like they're sleeping in glass cabinets. Don't try to wake them up, because if they do wake up, you'll probably not sleep anymore. And that's because these bodies have actually been dead, and some for several centuries. They're actually the bodies of saints who are believed to be incorruptible, which basically means that the Roman Catholics believe that such a body has witnessed divine intervention and will not decompose. And while some of these incorruptibles have started to disintegrate, others are very well preserved, even after centuries. Whether or not it's divine intervention or a work of nature, we only know that they are very, very creepy. Number 8. Goa Lawa Temple, Indonesia. When you think of a bat cave, you're no doubt thinking of the Caped Crusader, but then in Indonesia, there's a totally different meaning to the word. The Pura Goa Lawa is a sacred temple and probably the most important one in Indonesia. This cave temple is home to thousands of bats, and legends say that there's a river of healing water inside, along with a giant snake who wears a crown. Perhaps it's the fear of bats, or perhaps of the giant snake, but the cave has never been explored fully. But it does receive many believers daily who like to offer prayers at the mouth of the cave. Number 7. Rat Temple, India. The Karni Mata Temple is not for the faint-hearted. It may look like any other Indian temple from the outside with silver statues and marble panels, but the temple is home to over 20,000 rats. As they are supposed to be the reincarnation of the people who the goddess of the temple saved from the god of death via reincarnation, the locals consider them their ancestors and revere them. And if a rat runs across your foot when you enter the temple, don't scream. It's supposed to bring good luck. Number 6. Wat Kunaram, Thailand. Koh Samui in Thailand has many wonderful temples, but perhaps the most intriguing one is Wat Kunaram. And the reason for that is the temple has on display a mummified monk sitting upright in a glass cabinet with sunglasses and flowers, candles, incense, and fruit offerings around him is the monk Laung Pordang, the most famous monk in Koh Samui. Apparently, he had asked his followers to keep his body in a glass casket if it did not decompose, so that he could inspire others to follow in the path of Buddha, even after his death. And the fact that he died while meditating just adds to his reputation. And as much as people come here to meditate and pray, there is no doubt that the mummified monk gives many the creeps. Number 5. Waldsessen Basilica, Germany. We ask you, what is creepier than a human skeleton? And we answer you, a well-dressed human skeleton. In the Waldsessen Basilica in Germany, the walls are lined with very disturbing artifacts. They're skeletons who have been dressed in elaborate 18th century costume, complete with jewelries. The thing is that these bones were actually holy bodies, which means that they were Christian martyrs who were exhumed from the catacombs of Rome. Another interesting fact about this church is that there's a statue of Christ whose hands were broken, and people come to pray to the statue because they believe that it is a symbol of forgiveness. Number 4. Awashima Jinja, Japan. Dolls are a cute little thing for children to play with, but there's a point after which they become creepy. In Japan especially, people believe that dolls have a soul of their own and enough power to influence human lives, which is why there's a tradition of disposing off their dolls in a temple so as to not hurt its feelings and get it in a vengeful mood. So why do they still make dolls in Japan? Because it's a tradition, and on the festival of Hinamatsuri, people are supposed to display dolls. One of the shrines where this festival is celebrated is the Awashima Shrine, which is why there are over 20,000 dolls there. In fact, it is rumored that there are dolls here whose hair actually grows. All in all, it is one bizarre sight, and if you are someone who is prone to nightmares easily, we advise you not to visit this shrine. Number 3. Black House, Thailand. Of all the weird things to pray to, the tools of serial killers is perhaps the weirdest. After all, they were the instruments of death. The Black House is basically a series of 15 quasi-religious buildings, which have been made to look like burned down hideouts of serial killers. The temple is painted all black and contains animal remains and decorations from mutilated animal parts. And what is weirder is that all 15 houses are accessible, except for one, which is basically a torture chamber. So if you do happen to go here, you will definitely get the creeps. Number 2. Amiens Cathedral, France. The largest cathedral in France is actually a 13th century Gothic one, and perhaps in keeping with the Goth tone, it houses an impressive artifact, the head of St. John the Baptist. Of course, it's not the whole head, but just the front part without the jaw, and there's a very distinctive hole in the skull. Stories say that this hole was caused when he was stabbed in the forehead after his head was severed. So why did the church decide to keep his head? Because St. John asked them to, through a vision. And after his head was somehow lost, he appeared and pointed someone towards his head in Constantinople. It remained there for several years before it was stolen by a crusader and brought back to Amiens. It is also said that the relic attracted so many well-wishers that the Amiens church was largely built because of it. Number 1. Om Bana, India. Located in Jodhpur, India, is a shrine which is perhaps like no other. That's because it's dedicated to a motorcycle. And no, while there are many bike enthusiasts, Om Bana is not actually built for motorcycle love. It is believed that a deity resides in that particular motorcycle. It all began with an accident in 1991, when Om Bana crashed his bike into a tree, dying on the spot while the bike fell in the ditch. But when the cops took it away in the morning, it went missing and was found back at the spot of its accident. And this happened more than once, even when the bike was kept under lock and key. So obviously, people believed that the bike was actually sacred and built a temple at the crash site. Especially when people were going for a long-distance travel, it is a custom to visit the temple of the bike, called Bolet Baba, and take the blessings. And what's more is that sometimes they leave small bottles of alcohol as offerings to the Baba. Do let us know in the comments below if you have ever been to one of these weird religious shrines, or if we've missed out on any. And remember to subscribe to our channel for free to get instant alerts on our videos.